Filming is hard, man. I needed a lunch break. I am here to do my wrap up for the months of July, August and September, and I managed to read 13 books and 11 of them were audiobooks, which is pretty crazy, but I've had a lot of time to listen, not so much now, so the wrap up for the next 3 months of the year is going to be very small, I'm feeling. Hopefully I do read some books. I still have 13 books to talk about, and let's get into it because I feel like this is going to be a longer video because it's been too long since I've had this many books to talk about at once. So in July I only read 2 books, the first being Five Broken Beads by Mike Corlin. So this is the second book that Celestial Book Club has done, so I am really trying to stay up with reading these books because I really love having the video call and getting to talk about the books with everyone. And I also love too, because I'm sure I've shown this before, but they gave us a little stamp being Inner Circle members, and it says from the Library of Celestial Events Book Club, and that's just like another level of fun for a book club. Like, I really enjoy that they have this. Sadly though, I didn't like this book a whole heap. Like, it was good, there were certain aspects that I did enjoy, but there was just so much that fell flat. So basically we have 6 main characters. I know it says 5 broken blades, but there is a 6th perspective, which already ruins it. But basically we have all these different characters, and there's like a mercenary, there's a prince, there's an assassin, there's a poison maiden, there's a thief. You know, they're all doing their own shady things and they've all got their separate POVs, they're doing different stories, and basically they end up coming together because there's a plot to kill the king, and all of the things that they can do are a part of the plan, but they're all untrustful people, so they have to try and do this, but there is so much backstabbing and concern about what people are thinking and their objectives and their intentions, and there is just a lot of intrigue, but I just felt like it didn't work very well because there was too many characters, there was too much dwelling on not trusting anyone. I feel like it took a while to get the story to actually start moving. Like, I enjoyed it once everyone was together, but it took a long time in the separate perspectives as they were getting closer to each other. And obviously our 6 characters all end up getting partnered off because that's just how it works, but there was a previous relationship that rekindled and different things like that, but I felt like most of the relationships kind of fell flat except for Sora and Tai, who I really enjoyed their romance because hate to love, baby, it's the best. But it was just, you know, a lot of things I just didn't really like. Like, Ori was the character I liked the least because I didn't like the language that she would use, and she was very juvenile and I just felt like she didn't move the plot along at all. But then Sora was my favorite character because I loved her whole life of being a poison maiden and what she's been through, and she's just trying to save her sister, and she's had to kill a lot of men, and she was sent to this poison school, and she's basically a slave and has to kill people, and she was very interesting. And again, as I said, I liked the story with Tai, who is the like son of one of the men who was a count or something like that. I liked them, and that was really interesting. And I also feel like with this plot, like, it was building and the book ended. So I wanted there to be more. And I am going to read the second book because I'm hoping it's going to expand on the characters and the story, and I really hope that it's going to be good. But from what I read in this book, it just wasn't it. And it makes me sad because it had such an interesting premise. It just fell flat. I also listened to this on audio. It's just I was following along with the physical book so that I could like put it in my reading journal. So this was first of the audiobooks. Then I picked up Maybe This Time by Cara Stone. So another audiobook, and my first of the free Audible library because I've become an Audible member now. So I'm like Stuff Neverland. I'm fully on Audible side now. But my parents went for a cruise and to Singapore for 3 weeks. So I was having to do my dad's business, and while I'm packing orders I like to listen to an audiobook, so I managed to get a lot of audiobooks to listen to in a short amount of time. But these audiobooks are all like 5 hours long, so once you start listening to it on like 1.2 1.5 speed, they go very quickly. So I had a lot of downtime to listen, and I finally started to go through the Audible free library. So I've been adding things to my collection, but I'm using Audible and Spotify because they have different books depending on who got access to them and whatnot. So it's actually been really good because like I'm paying for Audible, and Spotify I already pay for the music, so it feels like I'm not like spending too much more than I was when I was paying for Everland and Spotify. I started to listen to Cara Stone's books, and you're gonna see a theme in the next second, but I loved this. Basically, it is like a time travel book. It's been a while now. I did a whole audiobook recommendations based on listening to this book where I talk about this book a bit better, but she's living her life and then she gets sucked into a wormhole and then she goes 90 years into the future, and then basically for the next 5 years she's locked in this house where she can't leave, she can't interact with people because it might mess the time continuum, and then she's just chilling, and then she realizes her mobile phone from 5 years ago just randomly started working, so she calls the only number in the phone because for some reason there's only one, and she calls one of the teachers that she worked with back 95 years ago, calls him 2 weeks before she goes into the wormhole, and basically their idea is that he's going to go and interact with the past version of her to save future her from going into the wormhole. But basically there is a lot going on because he is liking the version of her on the phone, but then he's also liking the version of her in real life. The version of her in real life starting to get memories as things change, and she also has a crush on a different guy at the time. So he's a very like nervous guy. He doesn't put himself out there very much, but he's having to try and save this woman, and it's a quick read. It was very interesting, and I just love the characterization, but the way that this audiobook feels like a conversation, like you feel like you're watching a movie without the movie being there, because you get all the background noises, as I said, having conversations, you hear the phone being muffled, you hear just so many sounds, and it was just a whole experience, and I just enjoyed this so much. But I also love the fact that Noah Reid, who was Patrick on Schitt's Creek, voices the man, and I didn't know until the end because I kept being like, I love this man's voice, and then I was like, God, it's Patrick. It was just a whole thing. But I love this. If you have Audible, I highly recommend this in the free library because it was just such a fun time. So then I listened to Call Me Baby by Cara Stone. So this is called the Sightlines trilogy. I did listen to them all, so we'll talk about them. So this one is, she's on hold with customer service for a website because she has this website that she's trying to launch for her small business, because she makes like care packages based on things like a first date or just a pick-me-up or let's go on a picnic, like all these date ideas, basically like care package date ideas, but she also has single box date ideas. Like she just does these cute boxes, and she's trying to launch this website, and she has a week and she's on hold, and finally this guy answers after like 3 hours. They just remain on the phone call, and I think for me, I hate talking to people on the phone, so I would hang up as soon as I possibly could. So there's no real romanticizing it. They're very different people for just being chill with this, but then it's like he is so dedicated to helping her, and then they do end up hanging up, but then they start calling each other again, and like they send each other food and they care about each other. Like he sent her a tow truck to help her, and basically it's the whole thing about making the website work, and then the way that they like both like each other, but they're both like, oh, I have a specific reason I can't tell them that I like them kind of attitude. And there was a twist at the end of this book that I didn't see coming that I really enjoyed. But I will say I didn't like this one as much as maybe this time. The first one was just so good. Even though the first one was like the most recent book, I went back to obviously read her whole collection, but I still had fun with this. But there was just a few things, and I can't remember the things because obviously it's been like 2 months, but I still enjoyed it. But it was just a little something that only got it to 4 stars, not 5. And then I read Sweet Talk by Cara Stone. So this one's about the brother from Call Me Maybe and about his love story, and what I actually liked too is the stories kind of happened at the same time, so we were seeing overlap between the two stories, which I really enjoyed. But then obviously the first story went further and we got to see a bit more of the main characters, you know, doing stuff, because we all know everyone ends up together and it's a romance, like it's just how it is. I again didn't like this one as much as previous because there was specific plot points that were so obvious, not even a page after they mentioned a little something, that I was just like, oh my god, like how can people be so stupid that I've realized this after 2 seconds, that these characters are like so thick that they just don't see what's happening, and I'm like, bruh, it's so obvious. Basically he texts the main girl in the morning a like you up message, but it was actually for his sister. But basically they just start texting each other, and then they actually, because he's dyslexic, they start voice memoing each other, and then they start talking on the phone, and it's a whole mystery because he doesn't know who she is, she knows who he is, and he's trying to figure it out. But then it's really cute because they don't meet each other for most of the book, and they basically just have this like cute romance. And again, it's like, oh, I want to tell her I love her, I don't know how to do it, I want to tell him, but there's something I can't tell him. Like there's all that going on, but it was cute. Like, I still enjoyed it. It's just some of the things I was just like, God, but I still would recommend it. Like, this trilogy is a lot of fun. Then I finally finished reading Crush by Tracy Wolff. So basically this book has taken me a very long time because I was just reading like 20 pages every day in the lunchroom at work, and I only have like 4 shifts a week where I have the whole hour break to actually read. I think it's been like 2 months that I've been reading this, but it's kind of weird because like it's obviously taking so long, so I'm not remembering everything as much as I should be, but I really enjoyed this book. Obviously it is a second book, so I probably shouldn't talk about it too much, but there was things that got introduced at first that I feel like if I didn't know one of the big things of this series later, just because these books have been out for so long and people have talked about them, and if you don't want a spoiler for the rest of the series and want to go in blind, probably don't listen to this next bit. Like, it's not going to be a major spoiler, it's just mainly one of the main plot points of the series, but if you just don't want to be spoiled, go and come back when I'm holding up a different book. But basically the love interest changes. So they're doing a Sarah J Maas where she's with the first guy, and at first it's like, oh yeah, they're kind of cute, but then you start to realize it's a bit like off. And then this new guy, Hudson, gets introduced, and he's a villain. He was dead in the last book, and then he got brought back to life, and he's stuck in Grace's mind, so he's constantly there, can read all her thoughts, see all her memories, and he's just always there. And I understand that if I got to read this series at the time the books were coming out, I would have hated this, but for me, knowing that the love interest is going to be someone different, I mentally got prepared for that so that I could like go in loving Hudson. So there were so many lines and ways that he acted that I feel like I picked up on a lot more because I was looking for redeeming qualities of this character, and I really loved their conversations and their banter, and the story really did develop because there was a lot of things happening, not just on the school side of things but the political side of the world. And there's a 6-book series, so there's going to be a lot that's actually going to happen in this world. And with Grace being a gargoyle, she is like the last of her species, so she's gonna go through a lot. But I like the pacing of the story. I don't think there's too much going on, and I just can't wait to see what's going to keep evolving in the series. I'm still only halfway through the second book because, you know, I went overseas and I'm only reading a small amount every day, so eventually that will be in a wrap up, hopefully by the end of the year. Like, I'm hoping I will get that book finished, but I am enjoying the story as it's going now, and it's just been a fun time. Okay, the next book I read was Seatmates by Cara Bestow, because obviously I finished a book in between all the audiobook listening, but this one was definitely my favorite of the series, so this one did get a 5 stars. So they're basically on this bus from Seattle to go to New York. She already was a bit late getting on the bus and is right at the back, and then he got on because he missed a bit of time and sat next to her, and he's one of those people that like never talks to strangers on buses, which I don't either. Like, why do people just seem to be okay with just talking to total strangers? But they start striking up a conversation, and the whole book is just the 5 hours of them talking, and that could be boring, but it was really, really good. But then things start to happen that delay her, because basically she needs to get to New York because she has a very important interview, and she didn't want to fly because it was too expensive, so she did the bus option, but then things start getting delayed. And these 3 audiobooks aren't as dynamic with the noises as maybe this time was, but it's still definitely there. So I would still highly recommend this trilogy if you want to experience more of that, just feeling like you're really in the atmosphere. Like, I just loved it so much, so I read as many as I possibly could. I really love the characters in this one, and the romance was done very well. Oh god, I don't read this many books anymore, it's just too much effort. And then my last Cara Bestow book is Love at First Sight, and I am so sad because I've run out of books now. She does have a full-length novel that I could like purchase with a credit on Audible, but I'll probably wait for a bit because I mainly use the credits for book club and then just books that I feel like I want to read eventually down the line. So that's what I've been doing at the moment. Basically, we have these 2 characters, because I cannot remember anyone's names and I'm so sorry. Basically, they're trying to scientifically prove that love at first sight is a real thing. And what they do is they interview different couples, but one of them is opposed to the idea and one of them is for the idea, so they're both trying to pick couples that relate to their ideas only. And it's just really interesting as they work through the concepts of love and romances and relationships and what people are doing, and just watching them fall in love themselves, because it was just done really well. Robbie, I think is the guy's name, he was very funny. I loved it, especially through hearing the humor in his voice for the audiobook. That was really good, but I just thought this one was just fun. I really did like the concept, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars because it was just wholesome, and I just loved, again, as I said, their conversations were really good, and I just love when you can get like a really good humorous book that just flows so seamlessly. It's just a lot of fun. Okay, and then in September I read 6 books, and I actually did did complete my magical readathon TBR because I read every book that was in that video, and I started Bonded by Thorns, which I need to finish in October to then make it count because I ended up using a scroll. So if you saw the TBR, all these books are going to be known to you, but I'm still excited to get into the books that I actually finished. So firstly, I listened to Heart of Fire by Beck McMaster, and this one was like, you know, I was going into it expecting it to probably not be the best story, and it wasn't like amazing. Like, I gave it 3 stars, but I did enjoy the actual dragon side of things. Even though they're called Dreki, they're like, bitch, we ain't dragons, we're Dreki. It's a whole thing. So basically, she's coming in and this Dreki takes her fucking ram and she chases after it like a woman after a dragon. Bad idea in the first place, but she gets into his lair and he's amazed by how brave she is and he really likes her. So then he like lets her go, but he's basically like, hey, every month you need to come visit me and talk to me because I've been alone for freaking centuries and I want some companionship. And she's like, oh cool, don't kill my animals anymore and it's a deal, and don't kill me. So that started. Then all these other people turn up who are like Dreki hunters, so they want to kill them because like the guy lost his wife to a dragon and he's going to be the main character of the next book, and I actually am intrigued by his story, so I want to listen to that one too. Basically, there's all these people and then this other man turns up who is suspiciously like the Dreki and sounds like him, and it's like, because I was concerned because I'm like, how? It doesn't feel very monster romancy. Like, I was expecting there to be a man somehow. So a man turns up who interacts with her, and basically I have no idea how she doesn't realize that he's the, you know, I did like hearing the history of the Dreki, but this book was also kind of really slow. Like, there wasn't a lot of plot pushing it forward. And obviously there was a looming threat of the Dreki and the hunter and all these things, but I feel like the romance took quite a while, and then I wasn't really a big fan of the scenes when they were together. Like, they were just a bit weird, but for what it was okay. Like, I listened to it on Spotify, so it was like a free book. That was okay, but I will continue on the series. I did save them all. And I probably won't buy these physically because the only reason to buy it is to get it signed, and I'm like, oh, I don't need a copy. But for finally reading a Babe book, because it's been taking me a while and I still have 7 months, I need to start reading more books. So I don't know if I would necessarily recommend this, but I guess if you do like dragons, read this one, and if you're going to Babe, probably give it a go, but I wouldn't put it like high on the TBR. Then finally this bloody book got read. I've been reading this for nearly 6 months and I finally did it. So I was like, oh my god, if I don't put it on my magical readathon TBR, it's never getting read. But I just found this book to be so slow, and the pacing was off and the miscommunication just dragged on. Like, it's so thick and it just got to me. Like, I love what's happening with the characters. I love Violet, I love Xaden, I love all the side characters, and I think the plot was very interesting. It's just for some reason it just slumped so bad. Like, I gave this 4 stars because I could not give it any less than that, but it just doesn't deserve 5 stars because I was just not captivated by it at all. And I don't want to talk too much about it, obviously. Like, the ending has got me intrigued again, but I was also spoiled for the ending previously, and it was like I only just started reading the book, and that probably affected my reading experience too, because I was just so mad that I had to see a TikTok of the second that I started reading the book, and I'm like, are you kidding me? Why does the phone always know? I don't appreciate that. But I am still going to continue on with the series. It's just this one slumped me so bad and it makes me sad, but I am going to continue on. I got a tattoo for this series, so obviously I do like it and I loved Fourth Wing, but it's just, I need a break. Then hopefully I will read the next book quickly because I cannot avoid spoilers for 5 months. I really can't. And then everything was what I read on my Europe trip. So I managed to listen to 4 books in 2 weeks, and I do not think that is bad. But the first one I read was The Spell Shop by Sarah Bester. So this is our 3rd book club read, and again I was able to, when I find it, put the little stamp in the book. So this has definitely been the best one so far of our book club reads, because the first 2 were just still like not the best book, but I still enjoyed having those conversations with people because that's the fun of it. I listened to half of this on the plane. I was like freaking so tired, but I just had my earphones in and I'm like, I can do this, I'm gonna enjoy this, and then I listened to the rest of it like within the first day or 2 of actually being on the bus and stuff. I've actually never read like a cozy romance story before, so I was so excited to finally give it a go. And it's so bad that I'm sitting here sometimes being like, oh, the stakes aren't even high, but that's the point. And I actually was really refreshing just being able to have such a chill time, and like there's just things in this book that are there for no reason, like cats with wings, and just, you know, there's a jam shop and a bakery, there's all different species, and like the main character's blue. Like, it's all just like very calm in a way, which I really enjoyed. But basically our main character starts off in a burning library where she's trying to save books, and then she gets on a boat and takes herself to a secluded island where she was from originally as a child, but then her parents and her moved away, and then her parents sadly died a few years previous, so she's gone back to the town where she knows and has gone back to her parents' house, and basically she is there with a sentient plant named Kaz, and they're just trying to protect the books because there's all this stuff happening with the government and the regime and all this stuff that she's trying to stay away from. And she finds out that she's actually able to do the spells, so what she does is she opens up a jam shop as a cover for spell making business, and she starts making friends, and she finds a boy that she really likes, and it was just cute. Like, I loved the shop aspect, I loved the gardening aspect, and I loved Kaz. And I just have to mention Meep, okay? You don't know what Meep is and you need to read the book to know what Meep is, but I just have to say Meep was my favorite thing. I won't elaborate, but just read it for Meep. If nothing else intrigues you, read it for Meep. But there is actually going to be another book in this series, but it's a prequel about the sorceress that made Kaz, so I think that's going to be really interesting as well. But it was just a fun time, so I'm so glad I've read it, and it was for book club, so I'm really hoping that I'm just going to keep discovering more reads and different story types from the book club, because I'm reading things that I wouldn't normally read, and I've just enjoyed that. Okay, and then I read Barbarian Lover by Ruby Dixon. So I was like, I'm never going to read this series again for a very long time, but then it was such a small audiobook to put on my Magical Readathon TBR. But to be frank, I actually really enjoyed this one, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. So I think this one's going to end up being my favourite in the series, but the fact that they were friends first just really helped, because all the other men just get right in there with the sex non-consensually, and I'm not a fan of that, even though the women are like, it's fine. I'm like, it's not. Weird aliens just don't understand, I have to ask, has just been a big thing for me in this series. So I like that he just wants to be around her and like just spend time with her. Like, obviously he wants to have sex with her, but I just appreciated that they started at this level of friendship, especially because they didn't resonate. So there was any point that he could resonate for someone else or she could, but I like that they just wanted to be with each other, and it also expanded on the story a lot more, so we got to see a bit more about the aliens that took them. Just some really interesting things. So I really enjoyed this part of the book that I think hopefully, maybe not soon, but I do want to try and read the 4th one, and I probably will now continue on with the series. And even though some of them are going to be shitty, I still want to see where it's going to go now. And then I have finally read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and I hate to tell you, I wasn't a big fan. Like, I only gave it 3 stars, and I know what it was trying to do. I know it was trying to be really magical realism and really whimsical, but I was bored. Like, I didn't mind Addie actually talking about the things that she did in her life, because like 300 years ago she made a deal with the devil to live on forever, but the consequence is that everyone forgets who she is the minute she leaves a room. So she just never stays, she never sticks for anyone, she just exists as this like just passing shadow. So that's a lot to deal with, but she's immortal and can't die from injury, so she just manages to stay on. And then the devil character checks in with her every now and then, being like, are you ready to give me your soul because you're sick of this? And she's like, I'm not. So for 300 years she's been doing this, and I did like seeing the past of her story. As I said, I liked that she was traveling around and doing a lot of things, and she really loves art and reading, and the way that she talked about things was really cool. But the modern storyline I wasn't a big fan of, because obviously we have Henry, who is this guy that is actually able to see her, and then I just, you know, I just wasn't a big fan. Like, and I know that this story was trying to convey these certain points and things, but I just was getting so bored. Like, I liked that it was short chapters and stuff, and it was a pretty quick listen, because at that point I was up to 1.8 on my audiobook speed, but I just struggled. And I was glad that I did get this finished in like 4 days. Like, it might have been 3 or 4, but like, I kept wanting to like listen to other things instead of this one, but I had to push through. But the one thing that I thought was really great though was the journey that she talked about through her life was what I did on my trip. So I started in Paris, and that was one of the first cities she went to after she was turned. And then it was like she went down to Florence in Italy, and then she was up in Amsterdam, and then she went to Bruges in Belgium, and then she went to England. Like, I was so excited because it was so cool listening to a story about travel on a traveling holiday that I was doing. So in a way, this book is always going to have a special place in my heart for that part of it, but I'm just not a magical realism girly, and I'm not smart enough for these kind of books. So I know a lot of people love it, but it just, for me, don't take my word on it. I'm sure everyone is going to like this, and I'm in the minority for a dumb reason, but it's just like this flowery crap. Like, this is why I can't really read Laini Taylor books anymore. Like, I found Strange the Dreamer so hard to get through, even though it was a beautiful story, but I'm not a magical realism girly. I really am not. And lastly, I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent, and this one was the worst for me. Just like, I really did enjoy it, but by this point in the trip, after all the 6 a.m. wake-ups, being on the bus for like 7 hours, I was just falling asleep. So I kept missing sections of the book, and I was also, because I had to get it done, because this was like the last 3 days of the month, and I was like, if I do not finish this book, I have not completed Magical Readathon, and I really didn't think I was going to make it. And I was like, I'll just buy another scroll, I'll tweak the rules, but I'm just so close. But I was listening to like 1.8, and it was just blurring. I was missing sections. I was just not focusing as much as I should be. Like, I basically got all the key details that she was sold into slavery as a young age. She'd been through a lot of things. Like, most books shy away from talking about this in fantasy stories, so I really appreciated that they were actually like, no, these things did happen to her. And she tries to buy her freedom, and then her owner won't let her go, so she ends up murdering him. And then she goes to the magic school, where they're like, okay, you're a lot older than you should be, but we'll train you up. And she gets sent to live with Mac, who is this massive recluse who doesn't want to do magic anymore, doesn't want to deal with it, but she worms her way into his heart, and they start training. But there is a lot of politics in this book. There are a lot of characters, and it was just a lot to remember. And I liked the characters, and I really liked Max. He's got that type of humor that I just really appreciate in a male character, but I was just finding it hard to want to keep up with all the magic details. Like, I actually was listening to the last half hour of this in the hotel room on the last day of the month, because I was just so close to getting it finished. But if I did read it again, I probably would pick up a lot of stuff that I missed, but I just can't have it in me. And I don't know if I'm going to finish the series anytime soon. Like, I did save them on Spotify because I can listen to them there for free, but I always have to think about my free 15 hours, because I have to like kind of pick books specifically for that now, especially if there's like babe authors I'm going to try and get to in certain periods of time as well. But I feel like these characters have a lot more coming for them in the next 2 books, so I probably want to have a bit of distance for that reason as well. But like, it was still very good. I just struggled a lot. So like, physically I only have these many books to show you, because also the Spell Shop was an audio. I think I mentioned that, but 11 audiobooks. I Am Flame and Crush were the 2 physical books. I just own my Inner Circle Book Club book picks because I just love stamping it. It's just the most fun to be able to put that damn stamp in the book and be like, look at my achievement, I read a book. But I had a great time reading, and there was a lot of audiobooks, so there was a lot of just like blurring and stuff, so there was so much. And I don't know if the next 3 months I'm going to read as much as I did, but I still really had a good month. Like, yeah, there were some books that were a bit hit or miss, but overall I had a really good time with the reads. But anyway, that is my wrap up. I'm just trying to catch up with all the videos and stuff, because I have so many ideas but just not enough time to get them all filmed, which is totally a first world problem. But I am so excited that I am having the motivational spark right now to actually talk about the books that I'm reading. But I do hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!